2022 HUD funding annual action plan. This is our second community input meeting for this year's plan. Our agenda this evening includes, we'll talk about the background on the consolidated plan and the annual action plan. We're going to review the proposed 2021-2022 annual action plan projects. For our CDBG program presentations, you'll hear from economic development, our neighborhood service centers, our rehabilitation and demolition unit, and our Department of Recreation and Human Services. At the conclusion of each of those presentations, there'll be a Q&A session. At the conclusion of CDBG program, we'll talk about housing support and development programs. And then again, there'll be a Q&A session to follow that. From there, we'll talk about the next steps forward in the annual action plan schedule. At the conclusion of our conversation about the annual action plan, we'll talk about another opportunity that the community has to give input on some additional funding that's coming to the city from the federal government in the form of the American Rescue Plan Act. So just a little background on HUD funding. Rochester receives about $13 million in HUD funding every year. The city of Rochester has adopted a new 5-year HUD consolidated plan as of July 2020. The HUD funds can be used for many activities that are recommendations of the Rochester 2034 Comprehensive Plan. Those include neighborhood reinvestment, expanding home ownership, affordable rental units in mixed income developments, stabilizing housing through code enforcement, park and playground improvements, and many, many more. The current consolidated plan covers a 5-year period from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2025. We'll be starting the second year of this plan as part of this annual action plan. This plan consolidates planning for 4 programs into one document. Those 4 programs are our Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, our Home Investment Partnerships, or HOME, our Emergency Solutions Grants, or ESG, and our Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, or HOPWA. The annual action plan for 2021-22 currently is posted for public comment through June 9th. And that period again covers July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. It details Rochester's budget and planned activities for the funding for year 2 of the 5-year consolidated plan. And it includes budget anticipated accomplishments for funding allocated for CDBG, HOME, HOPWA, and ESG programs. It includes a framework to address priorities established by the city in its Rochester 2034 Comprehensive Plan, and it includes all the input received from the public. This does not include funds that came to the city through the American Rescue Plan or the CARES Act to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. If you look at the chart on what we were allocated this year, the first 4 columns that describe those 4 programs we're talking about, it's a little bit more money overall than last year. But the last 2 columns, you'll see our CDBG program income and our home program income. We're forecasting much lower loan repayments this year. So the program income is a result of either housing development loans or business loans that have to be repaid. When they're repaid, that money goes back into the program for that particular year. And so for CDBG, some of the eligible activities include in economic development, we could have business loans and grants. For our neighborhood development, that includes things like street liaisons and planned development. It can include our rehabilitation and demolition activity. In public service, it can include recreation and youth and human services or support for the elderly. And for infrastructure improvements, it can include things like play apparatus and public facilities or street rehabilitation. In housing, it could be used for acquisition and rehabilitation of housing or to support people facing housing insecurity. Now I'm going to turn this over to Amy Ventura. Amy is our CDBG coordinator, and she's going to tell you how you can participate.
Okay, so after I go over this slide, we're going to be kicking it off to our various city program managers who are going to be giving an overview and highlights of the projects and those projects' budgets and projected accomplishments that are forecasted and included in the 2021-22 draft annual action plan document. We encourage people to be asking questions, and we also encourage those questions to be related directly to our proposed 2021-22 annual action plan document. There are a few ways that you can participate. So you can ask a question in the chat box at any time. We have staff on hand who are answering questions. And those questions may also be read aloud so that everyone in the group can see the responses. If you are on the Zoom call, you can request to speak into the meeting. So there's two ways you can do that. If you have joined and you're on the computer, you can press the raise hand button. And if you're selected, we will grant you permission to speak and unmute you, and you'll have 1 minute to talk. If you're on the phone, you press *9, and that's how you raise your hand. And it's the same process. If you're selected, you'll have 1 minute to speak. Just for everyone's information, this PowerPoint is going to be put on the city's con plan website, which is cityofrochester.gov/conplan. So these materials will all be ready, and they will have live links that are included in the presentation. We also encourage people to submit written input and comments about what we have included in the plan. That can be done at the link here. And like I said, once I upload this document, you'll have access to this link. The link is also currently live at cityofrochester.gov/conplan. Due to time constraints, we really are only allocating 2 people to speak per staff's presentation. So if you're unable to ask your question, we really encourage you to either put it in the chat or to submit your feedback via the link on cityofrochester.gov/conplan. So I'm going to turn it over to Thad Schofield. He's the Director of Strategic Business Development, and he's going to talk about the programs that are included in our proposed annual action plan.
Dad, you might be on mute.
Thank you very much, Amy. I appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner. CDBG funds are extremely important to us in helping businesses grow and create and retain new jobs. That's our primary goal, not only to retain the current positions, but also to create new jobs. During the pandemic, we helped hundreds of businesses, I believe over 500, help pay their current utility, rent, inventory bills, which they may not have been able to do so. And is equally as important that we want not only to retain those jobs, but open up new opportunities for businesses to open up for other city residents. And once we're able to do that, that helps our community, our residents, and also our businesses grow. Increased investment. When people spend more money and businesses spend more money and grow downtown, those funds go towards increased development, and businesses succeed. More funding is spent downtown and in the city of Rochester, and there's a positive domino effect that impacts the entire city. Thirdly, assist businesses with providing products and services for the community. It's very important, and every day we strive to make sure that residents have not only the products and services, whether they be grocery items or food, other services that everybody needs on a daily basis, that we assist those businesses and that they're successful so that they can provide those services to our city residents. We have several different programs, including grants and loans. Our grants can assist with working capital, renovations, equipment. Our loans are very similar. They can also help with equipment, also acquisition, renovations, working capital. They're lower interest loans, so our goal is to lower the cost of doing business in the city of Rochester, so we can be more competitive, attract more businesses, and help businesses grow. So our goals and objectives for 2021 and 22 include continuing to stimulate economic growth, create and retain jobs, support significant projects. This past year, we helped Zweigel's, a large employer of city residents. We also helped the Sibley Mercantile Building with 8 restaurants downtown, and which is also next door to the commissary, which is an incubator for small restaurants growing and creating new jobs. So our 2021 and 22 funding will be $475,000 for the Business Development Financial Assistance Program. Our proposed accomplishments are to help 15 businesses with 100 jobs created and retained. Our Neighborhood Commercial Assistance Program, which is generally thought of to be our small business matching grants for retail and commercial businesses, we're receiving $75,000. And our goal is to assist 9 businesses with those. So with a total of $550,000, our goal is to help 15 or actually 24 businesses with 109 jobs created and retained. So together, we do our best to help as many businesses as we can. We're looking forward to a successful year. I wanted to open the panel for any questions that you may have that I may answer for you at this time. And I believe we can use the chat box down below.
Okay, so hearing no questions, we can probably move on to the next section.
Very good. Now, I would like to introduce, actually, I believe that there is a question now is regarding the street liaison in a business corridor. The street liaison is as I believe everyone is familiar, it works with the commercial corridors. And the commercial corridor is basically an area that has many commercial businesses, mostly retail, that serves the city residents. It's a fairly broad definition. We have 4 different, we have a liaison for each quadrant, which is in the person I'm going to introduce very shortly, the director of the Neighborhood Service Centers, Daisy L. Guerin, to speak next. Thank you.
Thank you, Thad. Good evening, everyone. I'd like now to go over the Neighborhood Service Centers, CDBG programs for the coming year. The street liaisons deliver essential services to the business community to support business growth, attract new businesses, and support economic development. We also have a program we launched last year, and we are proposing to continue it. The Mayor's Leadership Training Program will provide training to 30 residents in leadership skills to support the development of grassroots block clubs and neighborhood groups. Third, this year, we are proposing $40,000 to support Konya Neighborhood Plan. Project will include hiring a consultant to facilitate the community planning process. And the other neighborhood we're proposing $40,000 for is the Lowell Avenue Neighborhood Plan. Project will include building on the work of the Community Design Center for possible intersection and streetscape improvements. The Street Liaison Program 21-22 proposed funding is $90,000 to support over 200 businesses assisted. When I say assisted, was this past year. Mayor's Leadership Training Program, $5,000 to assist 30 persons. We've had, last year, we had 21. This year we had 26, and we're proposing we'll have 30 in this coming year. Neighborhood plans for Konya and Lowell Avenue, $80,000, and the proposed accomplishments are to be determined for a total of $175,000 to the neighborhood to our neighborhoods in the city of Rochester. Are there any questions from the panel or in the chat?
Not seeing any questions at this time, Daisy, other than the street liaison question about our corridors.
Yeah, I think Daisy can address part of that question, especially the last portion of it, which is asking, it looks like our street liaisons focused on the targeted areas, and I'm assuming they're referencing the red code targeted areas, and our street liaisons cover a much broader perspective than that. So maybe Daisy can talk about that.
Yes, the street liaisons, when we enter into contract with their organizations, we identified a boundary area in a commercial corridor. So I'll give you an example. We have a street liaison over on West Ridge Road. As we all know, that's a very large corridor, but the focus area has primarily stayed between Lake Avenue and over by the Dewey Avenue corridor. That doesn't mean that if a business calls and they're going to be needing some help, the liaison will not respond, but that is the targeted area. Any other questions? Okay. I now have the pleasure of introducing Johanna Santiago, the Manager of Contract Services.
Thank you, Daisy. Good evening, everyone. For the rehab and demo programs for the City of Rochester, our priorities are to analyze the city neighborhoods to determine areas that would benefit most from CDBG funding, undertake planning and analysis of the city's program delivery system to address the areas of weakness and capitalize on the programs and strengths, address the childhood-lead poisoning through the city's lead hazard control program, address the housing repair needs of low to moderate income homeowners. The proposed funding for the 2021-2022 fiscal year is 1.8 for the demolition program with a proposed accomplishment of 100 buildings demolished, $100,000 for the emergency assistance program, 50 houses being rehabilitated, $575,522 for the housing rehab program, 72 houses rehabilitated. Any questions?
Joanna, can you please give me an example of maybe a typical kind of rehab that you do and what's covered in some of the programs for repairs to a home?
For the emergency assistance program, we cover, furnace, hot water heater, water services. For the housing rehab program, we address all lead hazards and any code violations that properties may have.
Thank you. Angela is asking if these areas all are in the Lyle area. I'm not sure what this relates to. I think we'll pass on that until Angela clarifies the question. Thank you.
Any more questions? I'll turn it over to my colleague, Sarah Scott, the Director of Recreation and Human Services.
Great, thanks so much. So the Department of Recreation and Human Services priorities are to develop programs and services that promote youth employment, readiness and job skill training, positive youth programming, civic engagement, also capital funding for parks and playgrounds, and programming that relates to STEAM education and the arts, and to expanded environmental education and nature-based programming for youth and families in the city of Rochester. So as you can see from the chart, some of our target areas are job creation, youth development, and employment opportunities and job training. Our department oversees the Summer of Opportunities program, which employs hundreds of City of Rochester youth ages 14 to 20 in summer employment opportunities, both within the city as well as with partners around the city to provide those youth with job experience, resume support, and professional connections and networking within the city of Rochester. Our STEAM programming includes our mobile recreation programs, which do science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programming with youth in both rec centers and in city parks, and in other neighborhood partner facilities, as well as our rock music program, which includes both string and brass lessons and music programming for youth, as well as our mural arts program, which includes a school year program, which is our rock paint program, where we hire youth that are learning with professional artists and developing their skills and portfolios, as well as a summer program that works with a select number of city youth to do mural installations at parks, basketball courts around the city. Our nature programming, Connecting Children to Nature, builds off the mayor's commitment to a 10-minute walk to parks for all city residents, as well as the growing interest in our parks and trails. So leading nature walks for families and youth, bike rides for families and youth, other educational opportunities with environmental education partners throughout the city. Our youth development and civic engagement is our Mayor's Youth Advisory Group, or Youth Voice One Vision. That group provides leadership training for youth. So they participate in a leadership council. They actually preside over meetings in city council chambers. They are able to meet with the mayor and provide the youth voice and perspective on some of the issues that are impacting our community and gain leadership skills through that opportunity, partnering with Nazareth College and other universities and students to make sure that the youth voice is being heard. International Plaza development, so building off of the success of a lot of the work that's happened in that community to provide another space for festivals and programming and market space, kind of building off of the success of the public market as well. And then obviously our infrastructure and play apparatus. So we do a lot to utilize CDBG funding to improve upon the safety as well as the aesthetic beauty and utility of our playgrounds. So we're working towards making sure that all of our playgrounds are modern, well-maintained, as well as improving the safety surfacing and longevity of those spaces. So that's any questions about that work that we do within the Department of Recreation and Human Services?
Hi,
So-
Sarah. We have one in the chat that says, how many different playgrounds will see the improvements?
Yep. So we have a system of twice a year. We do an inventory, a detailed inventory of all of our playgrounds, all of our apparatus, all of our courts as well. I forgot to mention that we also do improvements to basketball and tennis courts with this funding. And we go through and grade them all, and then we rank them based on the need. So we have a replacement schedule. We also prioritize, we're moving towards port in place surfacing for all of our parks. It's a safer, higher quality, more durable, better use of funding to replace safety surfacing. So we're going through systematically working through all of our parks. Based on the allocation that we receive, we're usually able to do about 2 to 3 spaces a year. And the question about the community centers, yes, we are able to replace our center playgrounds, and all again depends on how they rank in our assessment. So for instance, this year we're doing a mix of both community-based playgrounds as well as rec center playgrounds. Any other questions? Great. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. Oh, so I see Angela's asking a question. Angela, if you type your neighborhood, I'm happy to share with you some of the playgrounds that might be in your area. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Linda Hedden, the Associate and Admin Analyst.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to be sharing a little bit of information about the housing support and development programs included in this plan. That includes funding with CDBG, Home, HAPWA, and ESG. We'll talk about each of those a little bit more. CDBG Community Development Block Grant Housing Programs. The CDBG housing priorities and activities are intended to provide decent housing and a suitable living environment for low to moderate income households through public services and the rehabilitation of housing. To help residents become more stable in their housing, activities include assistance to seniors to remain in their homes, landlord-tenant education, and mortgage default resolution. 2021-22 goals and objectives continue to help and maintain and improve housing stability for low and moderate income households through the following activities or programs. The Home Rochester program, funds for management of the program that is combined with our CHODO funding and results in the rehabilitation and sale of properties to homeowners. Legal services for seniors to help address legal issues facing seniors so that they can maintain their lives and address any legal issues that they may be facing. Tenant landlord services to help households, both tenants and also landlords who have issues related to the rental experience. Foreclosure prevention, assisting homeowners to avoid foreclosure and resolve issues relative to those mortgage payments. The total of funding for these programs is $290,600, the bulk of which is toward the management of the Home Rochester program with $30,000 each for legal services for seniors, landlord tenant services, as well as $44,600 to assist with foreclosure prevention. The Home Investment Partnership Program, also known as HOME, is strictly dedicated to housing activities to assist low and moderate income households. The activities that the city participates in are homeownership assistance, new construction of homes, ownership or rental, and rehabilitation of homes. Part of those funds are to assist with administrative costs. There's a CHODO reserve, which is 15% of annual allocation, not including program income. And that is a requirement of the Act. 7 homes will be rehabbed and sold to first-time homebuyers through that program. Homebuyer assistance, $300,000 will assist 97 households to become homeowners. The Affordable Housing Fund, which is $1.6 million, is going toward development of residential properties, rental, and ownership. Total allocation for this year is $2,528,281, and the amounts identified in the chart amount to that. Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, or HOPWA, is housing assistance and support services for low-income persons with HIV/AIDS and their families. The city partners with Trillium Health and Catholic Family Center to provide housing services. There are funds for administration in the amount of $30,089. The balance of the city's allocation of $102,981 or $972,892 will go toward assisting 189 persons. The Emergency Solutions Grant, also known as ESG, provides street outreach and emergency shelter activities, homelessness assistance, homelessness prevention, and the city partners with many community agencies to provide such housing services. There are funds included for administration of the Emergency Solutions Program, the programming for agreements with service providers, total $654,547. Households assisted include 45 targeted toward tenant-based rental assistance and rapid rehousing, 945 persons assisted homeless person overnight shelters, 54 persons assisted through the homelessness prevention, and 45 persons assisted through street outreach. Total funds for this activity are $707,000, 618, sorry, and 1,089 persons or households are anticipated to be served. Are there any questions about the range of housing support and development programs that the city is proposing for 21-22?
think we'll move on, Amy.
I'll turn it back over to Amy Ventura. Thank you.
Okay. So as we begin to wrap up the process for approving the 2021-22 annual action plan, wanted to let you know where we are in this process. So in March, we had our first public meeting where we gathered input on how we should be spending the funds. We took that input and that really helped to guide the published draft that is out for public comment right now. So our second public meeting is today. And the next steps are that we'll have a public meeting with City Council on June 10th. Then following the public hearing and the City Council committee meeting, the action plan will be up for approval at the June 15th City Council meeting. As long as the plan is approved, we will then move forward with submitting the plan to HUD. And once we do that, that paves the way for HUD to approve our plan and for the funds to be accessible to us as of July 1st, when we kick off our program year. So as always, we encourage your feedback. So I'm the CDBG coordinator, and I encourage people, if they have specific questions about their own organizations or neighborhoods or projects that we're proposing, you can always email me at hudfunding@cityofrochester.gov. If I can't answer the question, I'll pass it along to my colleagues and program managers that you've seen speaking here. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be uploading all the documents that we've reviewed today on cityofrochester.gov/conplan. And at any time, you can visit that website to see previous annual action plans that we've done. It's really a catch-all for all of our HUD program documents. As I mentioned again, we welcome your written feedback. If it's lengthier, this is a great way to just submit something to us. That link brings you to a form that you fill out. And I maintain an email list for people who are interested in receiving updates about when we have received new HUD funding or when we're doing meetings like this. That's the first point of contact that I have to let people know that a meeting is happening or a new document is posted for review. So if you're interested in staying up to date with what is happening with the City of Rochester regarding our HUD funding, you can click that link and sign up to be on our email list. I'm going to hand it off to Gary or Commissioner Kirkmeyer, just to wrap up the presentation and just to give some information on one more way that you can have your voice be heard about City of Rochester decision making.
Thanks, Amy. So again, that kind of concludes our conversation tonight about the annual action plan, but we want to make sure that you are also aware of your opportunity to weigh in on some other federal funding that's coming to the City of Rochester. This is coming in the form of the American Rescue Plan Act. The city expects to receive around $202 million in funding in that plan over a 2-year period of time. The eligible uses for funding for projects and programs include respond to public health emergency or its negative economic impacts to the residents and businesses, replace lost public sector revenue due to COVID to support vital public services, and support infrastructure projects related to water, sewer, and broadband. So there'll be multiple opportunities for you to weigh in on the American Rescue Plan Act funding. The first and the continuing opportunity is currently you can go online to cityofrochester.gov/ARPA, and you can take that survey and submit to the city what's important to you and what you want to be considered to be funded with those dollars. And then next Thursday at 7 o'clock, there'll be a community input session via Zoom. And then tentatively scheduled right now for June 17th at 7 o'clock, there'll be a telephone town hall where you can call in and give your feedback as well. So please take the opportunity to exercise your rights to weigh in on that. That's a lot of funding coming to the city. It's going to do wonderful things to impact in a very positive way our community. And we want to make sure that we hear from the community on what's important to you. So in closing, I just want to thank everyone who took the time out of their busy schedules to provide much needed feedback. Your participation is an essential part of the annual action plan process. I want to thank our great team members here at the city for the continued commitment to ensuring these valuable resources go to the most in need. And please make sure to follow up on the upcoming opportunity to weigh in on the American Rescue Plan funding. And have a great rest of your evening. Good night.